Elena Vance stood at attention while three alien faces stared down at her. The council room was too bright. It was always too bright on Station Helix 7. The lights hurt her eyes, but she had learned long ago not to complain. Humans did not complain at the Galactic Unity Academy. They were lucky to be here at all. Commander Kethril sat in the center. His gray skin was smooth like stone, and his four eyes blinked one at a time. He was a Velnorian, one of the oldest races in the Unity. His people had traveled between stars when humans were still living in caves. "Cadet Vance," he said. His voice was cold. "You disobeyed a direct order during the combat simulation. You broke formation. You endangered the mission." Elena kept her eyes forward. "Sir, Cadet Drexy was wounded. He would have died. The simulation would have ended. He would have been fine. The wound was real, sir. The safety systems failed. I saw the blood." The room went quiet. The other two council members, a thin Nexari female and a massive Torvak male, looked at each other. They had not known about the system failure. Elena could see it in their faces. Commander Kethral's four eyes narrowed. "That changes nothing. You acted without orders. You showed typical human recklessness. This behavior cannot continue." Elena wanted to argue. She wanted to scream that she had saved a life. But she knew it would not matter. She was human. In the eyes of the Unity, humans were children. They were newcomers who had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They were tolerated, not respected. "We have decided your punishment," Kethral continued. "You are removed from combat training. You are assigned to permanent night duty in the Deep Archives." Elena felt her stomach drop. The Deep Archives. She had heard stories about that place. It was the basement of the Academy, dozens of levels below the main station. Old data cores were stored there. Broken equipment was left to rust. Cadets who went there never came back to active duty. It was where careers went to die. "Sir," she said, her voice steady despite the fear inside her. "May I ask for how long?" "Until we decide otherwise." There was no trial, no appeal. Elena saluted and walked out of the council room. Her footsteps echoed in the empty hallway. Other cadets passed her, but none of them met her eyes. Word traveled fast on the station. Everyone already knew what had happened to the human who thought she could be a hero. That night, Elena took the long elevator ride down to the Deep Archives. The lift moved slowly, and she counted the levels as they passed. 10, 20, 30. The numbers kept climbing. Finally, after what felt like forever, the doors opened. The archives were dark. Elena stepped out and looked around. The ceiling lights were dim, barely giving enough glow to see. Long rows of metal shelves stretched out in every direction, filled with dusty containers and forgotten machines. The air was cold and smelled like old metal. "Hello?" she called out. Her voice echoed and disappeared. There was no answer. She was alone. Elena found her duty station, a small desk near the elevator. Old computer screen sat on top, showing a simple message. "Monitor for unauthorized access. Report any problems." That was it. That was her job now. Sit in the dark and watch nothing happen. She sat down and let out a long breath. 3 years of training, 3 years of proving herself, and now this. All because she had done the right thing. The hours passed slowly. Elena tried to read the duty manual, but the dim light made her eyes tired. She walked between the shelves to stay awake, looking at the strange objects stored there. Old weapons from wars she had never heard of, data cores with labels in languages she could not read, equipment that looked alien even by alien standards. As she walked, she noticed something strange. The environmental controls on the walls were different here. On the upper levels, the controls were set to frequencies that all Unity species could tolerate. But down here, the settings were different. The light frequency, the air pressure, even the sound dampening, everything was tuned to a range that would make most aliens uncomfortable. Elena stopped and looked at the lights again. They flickered in a slow pattern. For some reason, the pattern did not bother her. In fact, she found it almost comfortable. Her eyes had adjusted quickly to the darkness. Her body felt relaxed in a way it had not felt since she arrived at the academy. She thought about her time on the upper levels. The lights were always so bright there. The schedules demanded that cadets sleep and wake at strict times. The training rooms were always temperature-controlled to suit the majority species. Elena had always felt tired up there, like she was fighting against something invisible. But here in the dark, she felt different. She felt awake. She returned to her desk and sat down. On the computer screen, she noticed an old file folder she had not seen before. The label said, Restricted Historical Records, Classification Level, Archived. Elena knew she should not open it. Restricted meant restricted. But she was already banished to the deepest hole in the station. What more could they do to her? She opened the folder. The files inside were old, very old. They talked about something called the Consolidation Wars, the conflict that had brought all the Unity species together 300 years ago. Elena had learned about this war in class, but the Academy version was simple and clean. The species had fought, then made peace, then formed the Unity. A happy ending for everyone. But these files told a different story. These files talked about a species that had been erased from official history. A species that lived in darkness. A species called the Shroud. And in one file, there was a single line about Earth. Planet classified as biologically hazardous. Recommendation: avoid all contact with native species. Elena stared at the screen. Biologically hazardous. Humans were many things, but they were not dangerous. They were weak compared to the Torvak. They were slow compared to the Nexari. They were short-lived compared to the Velnorians. Every other species in the Unity was better than humans in some way. So why had the Unity been afraid of Earth? Elena leaned closer to the screen. The file continued, but the next section was corrupted. Words were missing. Data was gone. Someone had deleted parts of the record on purpose. She sat back in her chair and looked around at the dark archives. The Academy had sent her here as punishment. They thought they were burying her in a forgotten place, but Elena was starting to think they had made a mistake. They had sent her to the one place where the truth was hidden, and she was going to find it. The Academy banished her to night duty. It was there she learned what made them vulnerable. 3 weeks passed in the deep archives. Elena learned to love the darkness. She slept when she was tired and woke when her body wanted to wake. There were no alarms down here, no bright lights forcing her to follow the station schedule. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, she felt like herself. She spent her nights exploring the archives. The shelves went on forever, filled with thousands of years of forgotten history. Most of the data cores were damaged or locked, but some of them still worked. Elena read everything she could find about the Consolidation Wars and the mysterious species called the Shroud. The official records said the Shroud were defeated long ago. They said the Unity had destroyed them completely, but the files in the archives told a different story. The Shroud had not been destroyed. They had retreated. They had gone to the dark edges of the galaxy, where no light could reach them. And there were more files about Earth, more warnings, more fear. One night, Elena found a data core that was different from the others. It was small and black, hidden behind a broken piece of equipment. When she plugged it into her computer, the screen filled with text that made her heart race. First contact report, Planet Earth. Classification, urgent. The report was from 300 years ago. A Unity scout ship had visited Earth during what humans called the Middle Ages. The scouts had watched from orbit, studying the planet and its people. Their conclusions were strange. The native species displays multiple biological anomalies, the report said. Their eyes contain a structure that allows rapid adaptation to low-light conditions. Their cardiovascular system supports extended physical activity without rest. Their neural patterns do not degrade during sleep deprivation as expected. Elena read the words again. She understood what they meant, but she did not understand why it mattered. Yes, humans could see in the dark better than some species. Yes, humans could run long distances. Yes, humans could go without sleep for a while. These were not special powers. They were just normal human things. Subject species displays behavior consistent with apex pursuit predators, the report continued. Recommendation: do not establish contact, do not reveal Unity presence, monitor from distance only. Apex pursuit predators. The words felt strange. Elena had never thought of humans that way. In the Academy, humans were always described as weak. They were fragile compared to the armored Torvak. They were slow compared to the quick Nexari. They were ignorant compared to the ancient Velnorians. But this report said something different. This report said humans were dangerous. I see you found the good stuff. Elena jumped and turned around. A figure stood in the shadows between the shelves. Elena's hand moved to her belt, reaching for a weapon that was not there. Easy, child, the figure said. A old woman stepped into the light. Her skin was dark and wrinkled. Her hair was white and cut short. She wore the same gray uniform that Elena wore, but hers was faded from years of use. Who are you? Elena asked. Dr. Yemisi Okonkwo. I have been down here for 32 years. The woman smiled. Welcome to exile. Elena stared at her. 32 years? You have been in the archives for 32 years? I asked too many questions when I was young, just like you. Yemisi walked closer and looked at the screen. Ah, the first contact report. I found that one in my third year down here. Took me another 10 years to understand what it meant. What does it mean? Yemisi sat down on a dusty crate. Her old bones creaked as she moved. It means they have been lying to us from the very beginning. Over the next few hours, Yemisi told Elena everything she had learned. The story was bigger than Elena had imagined. When the Unity first encountered humans, they were scared. Not because humans had weapons or ships or technology. The Unity had better versions of all those things. No, they were scared because of what humans were. Every species in the Unity evolved on bright worlds, Yemisi explained. Worlds with strong suns and short nights. They need light to function. In darkness, their bodies slow down. Their minds become confused. They become afraid. Elena nodded. She had seen this herself. The alien cadets always avoided dark places. They always kept the lights bright in their rooms. She had thought it was just preference. Now she understood it was necessity. But humans are different, Yemisi continued. We evolved on a world with long nights. Our ancestors hunted in the darkness. We do not fear it. We embrace it. She pointed at Elena's eyes. Your eyes can adjust to almost complete darkness in minutes. Velnorian eyes take hours. Your body can function on broken sleep. Nexari brains shut down if they miss one sleep cycle. You can hunt, run, and fight for days without stopping. The Torvak need rest every few hours. Elena felt something strange building in her chest. It felt like pride. So we are stronger than them? Not stronger, different, dangerous in different ways. Yemisi leaned forward. When the Unity found Earth, they had just finished fighting the Shroud. Do you know what the Shroud are? The files say they lived in darkness. Yes, pure darkness. They came from a rogue planet with no sun. They attacked in the night, moved through shadows, and killed anything that could not see them. The Unity nearly lost the war against them. Yemisi paused. Her old eyes were serious. And then the Unity found Earth. They found a species that hunted in darkness, a species that could track prey by sound and smell, a species that never stopped, never rested, never gave up. She shook her head. The Unity was terrified. They thought they had found another enemy like the Shroud, maybe worse. But humans are not enemies, Elena said. We joined the Unity. We are allies. Are we? Yemisi smiled sadly. Look around you, child. Look at this station. The lights are always bright. The schedules force everyone to sleep at the same time. The training programs reward species with quick reflexes and punish those with endurance. Everything about the Unity is designed for species who live in light. Elena understood now. The Academy was not just training cadets. It was reshaping them. It was teaching humans to live like the other species, to sleep when the light said sleep, to wake when the light said wake, to avoid darkness like it was something dangerous. They are suppressing us, Elena whispered. They are afraid of us, Yemisi said, and fear makes people do terrible things. She stood up slowly. I have been gathering evidence for 32 years. Files, records, data cores, everything the Unity tried to hide. I know what humans really are. I know what we can do. Then why have you not told anyone? Because I was waiting? Yemisi looked at Elena with eyes that suddenly did not seem so old. I was waiting for someone young enough and brave enough to do something about it. Elena looked at the screen, at the words that described humans as apex predators. She thought about her training, her punishment, her exile to the dark. The Academy had banished her here because they thought darkness was a prison. They did not know it was her home. Tell me everything, Elena said. I want to know what they are hiding. Yamisi smiled. In the dim light of the archives, she looked almost young again. Then we had better get started. We have much work to do. The Academy banished her to night duty. It was there she learned what made them vulnerable. Elena and Yamisi worked together for 2 months. They searched the archives every night, finding more hidden files and forgotten record. The truth they discovered was bigger than either of them had imagined. The Unity had not just avoided Earth, they had actively hidden information about humans from the rest of the galaxy. They had designed their entire civilization to keep humans weak without them ever knowing. But the biggest secret was about the Shroud. They are coming back, Yamisi said one night, showing Elena a decrypted military file. The Unity detected a Shroud fleet at the edge of the galaxy 6 months ago. They have been hiding it from everyone. Elena read the file with growing horror. The Shroud had spent 3 centuries rebuilding their forces in the dark spaces between galaxies. Now they were returning, and this time they would not stop until the Unity was destroyed. Why would the Conclave hide this? Elena asked. The Conclave was the ruling council of the Unity, made up of the oldest and most powerful species. Because they are scared, Yamisi said. The last war against the Shroud nearly destroyed them. They do not know how to fight an enemy that lives in darkness. But they know we can fight them. They know humans are different. Yamisi nodded sadly. Yes, they know. And that makes them even more scared. They would rather lose to the Shroud than give humans power. Elena felt anger building inside her. Millions of lives were at risk. And the Conclave was more worried about keeping humans suppressed than saving their own people. She was about to respond when she heard something. Footsteps. Heavy footsteps coming down the hallway toward the archives. Someone is coming, she whispered. Yamisi quickly hid the files and moved into the shadows. Elena walked to her desk and sat down, trying to look bored. The footsteps grew louder. The elevator doors opened. Commander Kethril stepped out. Elena stood at attention. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her face calm. Commander, I was not expecting an inspection. Kethril's 4 eyes looked around the dark archives. He seemed uncomfortable. His gray skin was pale and his movements were slow. The darkness was affecting him. Cadet Vance, he said, I have been receiving reports about you. They say you spend your shifts exploring the archives instead of staying at your station. There is little to monitor, sir. I was keeping myself busy. Is that so? He walked closer. His eyes moved to her desk, to the computer screen that still showed traces of the files she had been reading. What have you been looking at? Old training manuals, sir. Nothing important. Kethril stared at her for a long moment. Elena could see the suspicion in his eyes. He knew something was wrong, but he could not see well enough in the darkness to find proof. I will be increasing surveillance on this level, he said finally. For your own protection, of course. Of course, sir. He turned and walked back to the elevator. Just before the doors closed, he looked at her one more time. His 4 eyes were cold. Be careful, Cadet Vance. The darkness can play tricks on the mind. The doors closed. Elena waited until the sound of the elevator faded away, then let out a long breath. That was close, Yamisi said, stepping out of the shadows. He knows something. We need to be more careful. But being careful was not enough. Over the next few weeks, strange things started happening. Equipment in the archives broke for no reason. Files Elena had been reading disappeared overnight. Other human cadets approached her with warnings. You are being watched, a cadet named Marcus told her one night. He had been sent to the archives to deliver supplies, but Elena could see the fear in his eyes. The commanders are asking questions about you. They want to know what you are doing down here. Tell them I am doing my job. Elena, please. Whatever you are planning, stop. They will destroy you. She looked at Marcus. He was a good cadet, strong and smart, but he had been trained to be afraid. The academy had taught him to follow orders and never ask questions. What if I told you everything you know about humans is a lie? She said. What if I told you we are stronger than they want us to believe? Marcus shook his head. That is crazy talk. Humans are the weakest species in the Unity. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows what they have been told. That does not make it true. Marcus left without another word. Elena watched him go and felt sad. The Academy had done its job well. Most humans did not even know they had been suppressed. A few nights later, the station had a blackout drill. All the lights on Helix 7 went dark for 30 minutes to test the emergency systems. Elena was in the archives when it happened, but she made her way up to the main levels to observe. What she saw confirmed everything Yamisi had taught her. The alien cadets were lost. The Velnorians stood frozen, their four eyes useless in the complete darkness. The Nexari bumped into walls, their quick reflexes meaningless when they could not see. Even the massive Torvak moved slowly, afraid of tripping over obstacles they could not detect. But Elena walked through the halls like it was daylight. Her eyes adjusted in seconds. She could hear the breathing of cadets around her, feel the movement of air when someone passed nearby. Something ancient woke up inside her, something that had been sleeping since her ancestors hunted on the plains of Earth. She was a predator in the dark, and everyone else was prey. When the lights came back on, Elena returned to the archives with new understanding. The Unity species were not superior. They were specialized for bright environments. In darkness, they were helpless. And the Shroud knew this. That was why they attacked at night. That was why they had almost won the last war. "There is something else you need to know," Yamisi said that night. She looked older than ever, tired from years of carrying secrets. "I found the record of how the first war with the Shroud ended." She showed Elena a file that was almost completely corrupted. Only a few sentences remained. Human colony ship Endeavor entered Shroud space by accident. Contact lost for 72 hours. When communication restored, Endeavor crew reported complete destruction of Shroud staging base. 0 human casualties. Elena read the words 3 times. A single colony ship of humans had destroyed a Shroud base in 3 days. No help from the Unity. No advanced weapons. Just humans fighting in the darkness. The Unity was so afraid of what humans did that they erased it from history, Yamisi said. They decided it was better to suppress humans than to use them as weapons. That is insane. That is fear. Yamisi put her hand on Elena's shoulder. The Conclave has already decided what to do when the Shroud return. They are going to send all human personnel to safe postings far from the front lines. They would rather lose the war than let humans fight. Elena stood up. The anger inside her had grown into something larger, something that demanded action. "We have to tell people. We have to show them the truth. If we do, the Conclave will call us traitors. They will lock us away forever. They have already locked us away." Elena looked around at the dark archives that had been her prison and her school. "They sent me here because they thought darkness was a punishment. They do not understand. For humans, darkness is power." She turned to Yamisi. "Help me gather all the evidence. Everything you have collected for 32 years. We are going to tell every human in the Unity what they really are." Yamisi smiled. It was the smile of someone who had waited a long time for this moment. "I thought you would never ask." Elena worked in secret for 3 more weeks. She gathered every file, every record, every piece of evidence that Yamisi had collected. She copied them to a hidden data core that she kept close to her body at all times. But she did not work alone. During the blackout drill, Elena had noticed something else. She was not the only human who moved freely in the darkness. Other cadets had walked through the halls with confidence while the aliens stumbled around them. These were the cadets who had been labeled as problems. The ones who were too aggressive, too stubborn, too independent. Elena started finding them. She talked to them during meal times and passing moments. She asked careful questions and listened to their answers. Many of them had stories just like hers. They had done something brave or independent, and the Academy had punished them for it. Marcus was one of the first to join her. After their conversation in the archives, he had started paying attention. He had seen how the alien cadets treated humans. He had noticed how the Academy training always put humans at a disadvantage. "You were right," he told Elena one night in the archives. "We have been lied to. I want to help." Soon there were 10 humans meeting in secret, then 20, then 50. Elena trained them in the darkness. She taught them what Yemisi had taught her. She showed them how to move without sound, how to fight without sight, how to track movement by listening to the air. She taught them that their bodies were built for this. Their ancestors had survived for millions of years by hunting in the night. Feel the space around you, she told them during one training session. The archives were completely dark. Your eyes will adjust. Your ears will hear things you'd never noticed before. Trust your instincts. At first, the cadets struggled. They had spent years being told that darkness was dangerous. But slowly, something changed. They started to move differently. They started to feel differently. The fear left their bodies and was replaced by confidence. One night, Commander Kethrel came down to the archives again. But this time, he was not alone. Two Velnorian security officers stood beside him, their weapons drawn. "Cadet Vance," Kethrel said, "you are under arrest for accessing restricted information." Elena stood calmly. She had expected this moment. The surveillance on the archives had increased, and it was only a matter of time before someone noticed her activities. "You will come with us quietly," Kethrel continued, "or we will use force." "Commander, may I ask a question first?" He paused. "What question?" "Why are you so afraid of humans?" Kethrel's four eyes narrowed. "That is ridiculous. We are not afraid of... You built your entire civilization to suppress us. You keep the lights bright so we cannot see properly. You force us to follow sleep schedules that make us weak. You train us in ways that hide our strengths." Elena took a step forward. The security officers raised their weapons, but she did not stop. "You found out what we could do 300 years ago, and you have been trying to make us forget ever since. You do not know what you are talking about. I know about the Endeavor. I know what one ship of humans did to the Shroud. I know that the enemy is coming back, and you are planning to hide all the humans instead of letting us fight." The room went silent. Kethrel stared at her with an expression Elena had never seen before. It took her a moment to recognize it. He was afraid. But then something unexpected happened. Kethrel raised his hand and told the security officers to lower their weapons. "Leave us," he said. "Commander?" one of the officers asked. "I said leave. That is an order." The officers looked at each other, confused, but they obeyed. They walked back to the elevator and disappeared. Kethrel waited until they were gone. Then he did something that shocked Elena completely. He turned off the lights. The archives plunged into complete darkness. Elena could hear Kethrel's breathing become faster, heavier. The darkness was hurting him, but he did not turn the lights back on. "I am not your enemy, Cadet Vance," he said. His voice was strained with the effort of staying calm. "I was sent to watch you, yes, but not by the Conclave." "Then who sent you?" "There are those of us who believe the Conclave is wrong. We have watched the Unity prepare for war against the Shroud, and we know they will fail. They cannot fight an enemy that lives in darkness when they themselves are afraid of the dark." Elena listened carefully. In the darkness, she could hear the truth in his voice. The Conclave's plan is to send humans to safe locations when the war begins. They believe it is better to lose than to give your kind power. Kethrel paused. "But my faction believes this is suicide. If the Unity falls, it will not matter who has power. We will all be dead." "What do you want from me?" "I want you to continue what you are doing. Train your humans. Prepare them for war. When the Shroud arrive, you will be the only ones who can stop them." Elena felt her heart beating faster. This was what she had hoped for, but she had not expected it to come from him. "And what about my arrest?" "There will be no arrest. I will tell the Conclave that I found nothing suspicious in the archives. But you must be careful. There are those who will do anything to stop you." He turned the lights back on. Elena saw his gray face covered in sweat. The few minutes in darkness had exhausted him. "One more question," she said. "Why are you helping me? If the Conclave discovers what you have done, they will execute you." Kethrel looked at her with his four eyes. For the first time, she saw something other than coldness in them. "Because I have seen what the Shroud do to the worlds they conquer. I watched my home planet burn when I was a child. The Unity saved us, but only barely." He moved toward the elevator. "I do not care who wins the peace, Cadet Vance. I only care that someone wins the war." He left. Elena stood alone in the archives, thinking about everything that had just happened. She had an ally inside the system, But the system was still working against her. The conclave had already made their decision. In a few weeks, all humans would be transferred away from the academy and sent to distant, safe stations where they could not interfere with the war. Elena could not let that happen. That night, she gathered her group in the darkest part of the archives. 50 humans stood in complete blackness. Their eyes adjusted, their bodies ready. Among them was Yamisi, old but strong. "The time for secrets is over," Elena told them. "In 3 days, the conclave will order all humans to leave the station. If we go, we will never be allowed near the front lines. The Unity will lose the war, and we will be blamed for it." She held up the data core that contained 32 years of evidence. "But we have the truth. We have proof of what humans can do. We have evidence that the Unity has been suppressing us since they found Earth." She looked around at the faces she could barely see. "If we share this with every human in the galaxy, they cannot stop us all. They will have to listen." Marcus stepped forward. "If we do this, we will be called traitors." "Yes. We might be arrested, executed." "Yes. Then why should we do it?" Elena smiled in the darkness. "Because we are not doing it for ourselves. We are doing it for everyone who comes after us. Every human child who will grow up being told they are weak. Every human soldier who will be sent away from battle because others are afraid of what they can do." She raised her voice. "The Unity fears what we become in the dark. It is time to remind them why." She activated the data core. The screen glowed with a single command: broadcast to all human frequencies. "They kept us in the light because they feared what we become in the dark," Elena said. "Now it is time to remember what we are." She pressed the button. Across the galaxy, every human received the same message: the truth about their history, the truth about their abilities, the truth about what the Unity had hidden from them for 300 years. And in the dark spaces between stars, the Shroud fleet moved closer. The war was about to begin. The broadcast changed everything. Within hours, Elena's message had spread to every human colony, every ship, every station in the galaxy. Humans everywhere watched the evidence with growing shock and anger. They learned how the Unity had suppressed them. They learned about the Shroud. They learned what their ancestors had done in the darkness 3 centuries ago. And then they learned that the Shroud were coming back. The Conclave tried to stop it. They called Elena's broadcast lies and propaganda. They ordered all humans to report to collection points for immediate transfer to safe zones. But humans were no longer listening. On 100 worlds, humans began to train in the darkness. They turned off the lights in their homes and learned to move without sight. They ran through the nights and fought in the shadows. Mothers taught daughters. Fathers taught sons. Old soldiers remembered skills they thought they had forgotten. The awakening had begun. Elena expected to be arrested. She expected the Conclave to send soldiers to drag her from the archives and make an example of her. But Commander Kethril kept his word. He protected her as long as he could, sending false reports and misdirecting investigations. 3 weeks after the broadcast, the Shroud arrived. They attacked at night, just as they had 300 years ago. Their ships appeared from the darkness between stars, black against black, invisible to sensors designed for light-based species. They struck the outer colonies first, killing millions in the first wave. The Unity fleets responded, but they were already losing. The Shroud did not fight like normal enemies. They did not fly in formation or follow predictable patterns. They moved like shadows, appearing and disappearing, attacking from angles that should have been impossible. The Unity admirals could not track them. Their weapons could not hit them. Their crews panicked in the darkness of space. Station Helix 7 received the distress calls. Elena stood in the command center with the other cadets, watching the reports come in. World after world was falling. The Unity was losing the war before it had truly begun. "We need to do something," Marcus said. "We cannot just stand here. The Conclave has ordered all humans to remain in their quarters," a Velnorian officer said. "You are not permitted to..." "To what? To help?" Elena stepped forward. "Your fleets are dying out there. Your soldiers cannot fight in the darkness." "We can." The officer shook his head. "The Conclave's orders are clear. Then the Conclave is going to lose this war." Before the officer could respond, the station shook. Alarms blared. Red lights filled the command center. "We have been boarded," someone shouted. "Shroud forces are inside the station. They are on the lower levels." The command center erupted in chaos. Officers ran to their stations. Soldiers grabbed weapons. But Elena could see the fear in their eyes. The Shroud were here, on the station, in the darkness of the lower levels. The levels where no one wanted to go. The levels where Elena had spent months living and training. "All human cadets, follow me," she said. She did not wait for permission. She ran toward the elevators with 50 trained humans behind her. Marcus was at her side. So was Yemisi, older than all of them, but still strong. The elevator took them down, down, down into the deep levels of the station. When the doors opened, they found darkness. The Shroud had destroyed the lights. The lower levels were pitch black, filled with strange sounds and the smell of smoke. Somewhere in the darkness, the enemy waited. Elena smiled. "Turn off your helmet lights," she told her team. "From now on, we fight in the dark." They moved into the shadows. Elena's eyes adjusted in seconds. She could see the shapes of the corridors, the outlines of damaged equipment, the bodies of Unity soldiers who had tried to fight the Shroud and failed. And she could see them, the Shroud. They were tall and thin, with skin like oil and eyes that reflected no light. They moved silently, almost floating through the air. In the darkness, they had seemed like ghosts, but now Elena could see them clearly. They were just creatures. Strange creatures, yes. Dangerous creatures, absolutely. But they bled. They breathed. They could be killed. "Contact left," Marcus whispered. He had seen them too. "I count 12, Elena said. "Spread out. No lights, no sounds. Hunt them." The humans moved. They did not run or charge. They stalked. They circled around the Shroud like wolves around prey. They used the darkness that the Shroud thought belonged to them alone. The first Shroud died without knowing it was being hunted. Elena came up behind it and broke its neck with a quick twist. The creature collapsed without making a sound. The second Shroud heard something and turned. It saw a human face in the darkness, smiling at it. Then it saw nothing at all. One by one, the humans killed the boarding party. They fought in silence and shadow, using skills that their ancestors had developed over millions of years. The Shroud tried to flee, tried to hide, tried to call for help, but there was no escape. For 300 years, the Unity had told humans they were weak. For 300 years, humans had believed them. No more. When the last Shroud fell, Elena stood in the darkness and listened. Her team was around her, breathing hard but alive. Not a single human had died. "Report to command," she said. "Tell them the lower levels are secure." They returned to the command center as heroes. The Velnorian officer stared at them with disbelief. Commander Kethral stood in the corner, and for the first time, Elena saw him smile. But the war was not over. The Shroud fleet was still attacking Unity forces across the sector. Stations were falling, ships were dying. The Unity needed help. Elena contacted the human colonies. Across the galaxy, volunteers answered. They came in private ships and stolen transports, in military vessels and civilian freighters. Thousands of humans trained in the darkness, ready to fight. They called themselves the Night Guard. For 5 days, the Night Guard fought the Shroud. They boarded enemy ships in complete darkness. They defended stations by hunting invaders through lightless corridors. They flew into the black void of space and engaged enemies that no other species could see. The Shroud had never faced anything like them. They had expected helpless prey, blind and afraid. Instead, they found hunters, predators. Humans who had finally remembered what they were. On the 6th day, the Shroud fleet retreated. Their commanders had seen enough. They had come expecting easy victory, and instead they had found their own extinction. The war was over. In the aftermath, the Conclave had no choice but to acknowledge what had happened. Humans had saved the Unity. Humans had done what no other species could do. The truth could no longer be hidden. Elena was summoned to stand before the Conclave itself. She expected punishment. She expected anger. Instead, the ancient leaders of the Unity looked at her with something like respect. "You have proven us wrong," the eldest Conclave member said. "We feared your kind for 3 centuries. We tried to make you less than you were, and in the end, you saved us anyway." "We did not save you for gratitude," Elena said. We saved you because it was right, because that is what humans do. The conclave offered her a choice. She could have any position she wanted, any rank, any power. Elena asked for one thing: create the Night Guard as an official force. Let humans serve as the Unity's defenders in the darkness. Open the archives and restore all the records you erased. Never suppress another species out of fear again. The conclave agreed. 1 year later, Elena stood in a training facility on Station Helix 7. It was the same station where she had been punished, banished, and forgotten. Now it was the headquarters of the Night Guard. Around her stood hundreds of human soldiers, training in complete darkness. They moved like shadows, fought like predators, and feared nothing. Beside her stood Yamisi, no longer hidden in the archives but honored as a hero. And Marcus, who had grown from a frightened cadet into a warrior. When I was sent to the archives, Elena told them, the Academy thought they were punishing me. They thought darkness was a prison. They did not understand that for humans, darkness is home. She looked at her soldiers, at the future of humanity and the Unity. They feared what we become in the dark, and now they know they were right to fear us, not because we are their enemies, but because we are the nightmare that nightmares run from. She smiled. We are human, and the dark belongs to us. The lights went out. In the blackness, the Night Guard began to train, and somewhere in the deep void of space, the surviving shroud whispered warnings to each other about the creatures who hunted in the darkness. The creatures from a small blue planet called Earth. The creatures who never stopped. The creatures who were never afraid. Humanity had finally awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same.